Welcome to Wisco Fanatics. Today we are doing the Green Bay Packers 2024 Draft Class Offensive Picks Review.
Welcome to another live episode of the Wisco Fanatics Show, where we discuss the Packers, Bucs, Brewers, Badgers football, and basketball from an optimistic perspective. Wisco Fanatics is brought to you by Cardboard Legacy, Wisconsin's most complete sports card shop. Buy, sell, grade, and consign all at their location in Oshkosh.
Welcome, everybody, to an episode of Wisco Fanatics. We are joined by Bryant. As soon as Simon gets off the moose here with the mail carrier, he will join us as well. But we're going to be going through some 2024 Packers offensive picks. A couple of them, I believe 5 off the top of my head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, 5 that I wrote down and took some notes on. We have some undrafted free agents that I could cover real quick, and then just wanted to let everybody know that we have all of the draft picks on except the top 3. So I don't want to sit here and read all the names. It's pretty easy. Just 2024 Packers draft class, and then you can know that everybody but the top 3 is signed. So got that going for you. Undrafted free agents, I'll just run through that real quick so everybody can kind of understand where the Packers are at. So Peter Bowen, he played at the University of Wisconsin. He was a long snapper, and he was a damn good one, I'll say. So
I got to interview him, just throwing that out there.
Tyler interviewed him, yep. So go check that out. Maybe we have to pin that to the top of the page since he's a Packer now.
I'll say I can reshare it.
Yeah, might not be a bad idea. James Esther, D lineman. Raylan Goffert, linebacker. Jarvion Howard is a running back. Donovan Jennings, an offensive lineman. Trent Jones is also an offensive lineman. Rodney Matthews is another defensive lineman. And the coolest name of them all, Messiah Swinson. I mean, tight end. I mean, what a sick name for a tight end, dude. Touchdown to Messiah. Love the Messiah. I mean, come on. I can hear the call on CBS already, dude. I can hear it already.
I'll allow it.
With as many people.
Side note, Trent Jones sounds like an offensive lineman.
Who does?
Trent Jones. That just sounds like an offensive lineman.
Yeah, he was pretty good too. I was reading as I was looking these guys up. I was reading about them from Packers.com, and they got some interesting notes. They got some guys, I'm gonna say, but Peter Bowen, probably the best of the bunch, and one of those positions that you don't really think about until they make a mistake, right? So, with that being said, Tyler, let's get right into it, man.
All right, so yeah, this show and next week is basically just we're going to talk about our thoughts on the picks and kind of just go into what we think the role is going to be in 2024. I think that's going to be the more interesting part of this, and then we can revisit this, when we get into preseason and right before the season is starting, and then obviously as the season goes on, we can kind of update these and review them and see who was right, and see who had good ideas, and see who's fired. So. I'm just kidding. But I do want to say before we get started, this is just another reminder. I know I put it in the descriptions for this video. All of our Green Bay Packers content is moving from Friday nights to Tuesday nights for this season. It's really going to be, it's really a thing so that we can continue to have it so that people can watch, listen. We can share clips of the shows. People can see parts of the shows on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday instead of people only having Saturday and Sunday morning to review our shows on Friday night if they can't watch it live. So really had it with more people being able to access it with only having 24 hours to do it from Friday night to basically Saturday night before Sunday morning. So we really wanted to make sure that we were able to review games sooner after they happen and then get our thoughts out and then be able to have the rest of the week to do play breakdowns and other updates like that.
Yeah, and reactions to injuries and
exactly. Yep. So now that the draft is over, tonight is our beginning of that. So we're on Tuesday nights now for the Packers, and then we still have our regular Wednesday shows for everything else. So Jake and I will be live again tomorrow. But we're going to start with Jordan Morgan. So, Bryant, I'll go to you first. What are your thoughts on Jordan Morgan? And then we'll go around the horn on our thoughts, and then we'll come back and we'll discuss what we think the role is going to be.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say I love this pick. I didn't hate it either. I thought it was a really good pick for it's going to bring a lot of versatility to the line. I know people are like, oh my gosh, he has short arms. His arms are like an eighth of an inch shorter or a quarter of an inch shorter or whatever than like what the Packers threshold is, right? But with those short arms, he also has huge hands. So that's going to help with grip strength and all that. It sounds like he really he can get out and move. He can pull really well. Like one of his flaws they were saying is he kind of over widens or whatever. So that's something they can train and teach, like, hey, maybe kick back a little more instead of sideways, or just lessen that a little bit. But for me, this pick it brings huge versatility to the line, and really I've thought about it a lot, and they could put Jordan Morgan at like, you could see what Jordan Morgan go to left tackle, Rasheed Walker go to right tackle, and Zach
Rattle down.
see a lot of stuff happen here. Like, so it really, or you could see him slot right into right guard and stay there too, because he can play that position. Like, so it really gives them, and we'll talk about Monk in a little bit, but it really gives them the opportunity to play with that line and see what they really want to do with it. So I think it was a great, it ended up, the more I think about it, I think it's a great pick because of his versatility. So,
Jake, what do you think of the pick?
Yeah, so going into it, obviously we all made our picks what we wanted, right? And Jordan Morgan was not a pick for anybody. And then you get the pick, and we've all learned, at least the ones with at least a half a brain, we've all learned to just kind of take a back seat and be like, you know what? This franchise has been pretty good for a pretty long time. You might want to just let things happen. And Jordan Morgan's just going to follow that description, in my opinion. And there was a quote, and I'm going to paraphrase here, but Goot said that he liked Cooper DeJean. Well, he must have really, really, really liked Jordan Morgan, because he took him when Cooper DeJean was sitting there, right? And Cooper DeJean just kept falling. But the thing about Jordan Morgan is, and yes, Brian brought it up, he's good at polling, he's good in the screen game, and he's good in play action. What does that sound like to you? That sounds like the Green Bay Packers offense, right?
Yep.
So I would say the fit is good. If his arms are an eighth of an inch shorter, but he's able to get out in front of our running backs, and we're going to talk about one that we drafted in a second here. Yeah, I'm game. Now, a lot of people are just slotting him into that right guard spot because that's what the talking heads are saying, right?
Down before we get to the rolls.
Well, I'm not doing that, just so you know. But I will say that I think that he's a very good athlete. I think that he's very smart, and I think that he checks all the boxes of versatility that the Packers like.
So my big thing, and I made a video about this as soon as the pick was made, the day after it was made, to make a point on this. I view him as a safe pick. When I posted my last mock draft on Wednesday, but the day before the draft, I had the Packers picking Graham Barton at 25.
Mm-hmm.
And he went 26 right after Jordan Morgan. So it was just the Packers essentially just wanting a different athlete.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, it didn't shock me, I guess, but it's not a sexy pick. It's not somebody that people are like, oh, I can't wait to go buy that guy's jersey. And I think that's part of why people, don't like the pick. And it's, it's not something that's going to like make people want to move the needle on the Packers' chances for anything. However, my thing that I keep coming back to is the Packers just invested in Josh Jacobs, and they are about to make a giant investment in Jordan Love. Whatever your feelings are on the subject, it's happening whether you like it or not. So just going to put that in a box and leave it there because that's happening. It's happening. The Packers are going to pay Jordan Love whether you like it or not. It's happening.
He's only getting $25 million, Tyler. Just remember that.
He's probably going to get a $25 million signing bonus.
Sheesh. You're not lying, bro.
8.
but
You made a good point though, real quick, about and it kind of like Graham going right afterwards. That tells me that the Packers at least probably see the potential to be as a tackle, because if not, if they're drafting Morgan to be a guard, they might take the true guard at that position point. You know what I mean? So,
and the Buccaneers are actually starting Barton at center.
Interesting.
Is where they're starting him. So, anyways, my point on Jacobs and Love is that they are investing in those. So it makes perfect 100% sense to me to make a selection to protect those investments. Now, that is something that the Bengals didn't do to Joe Burrow. They drafted him a wide receiver, and he's dealt with it. He's paid the price of the organization not protecting him.
Sadly,
We're going to find out if the Chicago Bears made the right choice by going and trading for a great wide receiver last year, trading for a storied wide receiver this year, and then drafting another wide receiver when they had their pick of the litter of offensive linemen that they could have selected at 9.
Or a
We're going
punter
to
in the
find
fourth
out if
round.
that's going to come back to bite them or not.
Wasn't Christian Mahogany and stuff on the board where Detroit got him when the Lions were like, with our last pick, and everyone's like, well, I guess it's our last pick. You take who you want. They take a damn punter. No, because then they traded back into the freaking draft and took somebody.
Yep.
I'm sure they could have done that for that punter. So
They have one offensive lineman that I trust.
I will say I was reading an article on Taylor, the punter, and there's a lot of stuff that they're kind of planning on doing with the new kickoff rule where he could spin the ball and land it in certain spots. So, I mean, if you use him as a weapon that way, now we haven't got to the new kickoff rule, so we don't know what that's going to all entail. But I do think that if that's the plan with him, I don't mind, spending a 4th round pick on that.
If you have the capital, though, would you rather have your quarterback be killed or have a fancy punter?
That's my thing. Is why are you looking for special teams weapons before protecting your number 1 overall pick?
That's what Green Bay was doing this year, was looking for specialty pieces a little bit. Chicago
after they secured the protection for their investments.
Well, since they're going to be using their punter so much, they should probably make sure one's good,
True.
right? I had to get it out. It was on the tip of my tongue, man.
Yeah. Okay, so that being said, Bryant, where do you view Jordan Morgan in his role in 2024?
Yeah, my bad. I kind of jumped into it already, but I think at the beginning of the year, he's probably the 6th offensive lineman, unless he really, really shows out in preseason and stuff. I think he starts out as a 6th offensive lineman to kind of start to get comfortable and stuff. But honestly, maybe not, because I don't think that would mean Sean Ryan starting. And I don't necessarily think Sean Ryan's going to be a starter at guard. So I do think he cracks the lineup. It's just really hard to say, is it going to be Jordan Morgan at left tackle and, Rasheed Walker at right, vice versa? Is Zach Tom going to kick into center and Myers into guard? It's really hard to tell. That's why I think he's top 5 or 6 for sure. He might not start until he kind of gets used to whatever role they put him in, but it's going to be close. It's going to be interesting. That's all I'll say.
Jake, you want to go? I have what I think is a potentially hot take, but go ahead.
So, like I said, a lot of people are just kind of putting Morgan in at that right guard spot. I don't see that happening. I do see a draft pick that may slide into that right guard spot. It's going to leave that right there. You can take that for what you want. I think that Jordan Morgan is a left tackle, and so clearly does Goot. You don't say somebody has left tackle feet without thinking they're a left tackle, right? I don't say he has left tackle feet and put him at right guard. That doesn't make much sense. When I say somebody has 2 left feet, what does that mean? They trip a lot.
Put him on the interior.
Like Luke Musgrave.
Or A.J. Dillon. So, listen, I think that he's competing for the starting left tackle job, and I think that is completely up for grabs. I don't give a shit what happened last year, and I don't think that Goot does either.
He could be. I mean, Rasheed Walker could
be
be
the best 5 out there, right? They've said that for years.
Could be trade bait.
Jake, so what did you say? You said you think he's going to compete for left tackle?
I think it's going to be between him and Walker, obviously, for the left tackle spot. And whoever wins is going to win. The other one's going to be the backup. And if somebody has a bad day, I don't think LaFleur is scared to pull him and put the other guy in. So he's a left tackle to me.
I'm going to take it a step further, and I'm going to say that is what's going to happen.
I can see it.
I'm going to say, based on the way that Gutekunst, LaFleur, Stenovich, and Luke Butkus talk about Jordan Morgan, that he is the front runner to start at left tackle.
I see that.
So Luke Butkus said this: Myers is a center.
Mm-hmm.
Just about everyone else will be cross-trained. So that, with my take that I believe that Jordan Morgan is the current front runner for left tackle, what does that mean for Rasheed Walker? I think that means that he's either going to be tackle 3, like Yosh Nijman, He's not playing tight end. I'm just
Dang.
as
Maybe
fun as
lost
that would be.
weight.
Maybe in the goal line. He's going to be tackle 3, and I could see Rasheed Walker maybe being tried to train at right guard.
I don't hate that.
He's pretty
So-
tall. I can't remember his size. He's a big boy, isn't he?
And that totally could be a factor, and that's where I could come back to where I could fall back onto something like how Jake said, of if one's not playing well or if he messes something up, you put the other one in and you pull the other one aside and say, hey, stop screwing up.
I mean, 6'6", 324. I mean, he's got the weight to play in there. I mean,
You got all summer to find out.
yeah.
But that's really where I think Jordan Morgan is starting at left tackle week 1.
I can see it.
And I'll say this is, we've talked about this at points. We're like, we've had the conversation where, Rasheed Walker is fine at left tackle. I think the Packers want to be better than fine.
Exactly. That's what I
And-
think too.
Rasheed Walker was a 7th round pick. Jordan Morgan, 1st round pick.
Yeah.
The invested capital is there. I think Jordan Morgan was drafted to be the guy at left tackle.
You know the saying, the writing's on the wall. I'm just gonna leave it like that.
Yeah. 1st round, 7th round. I get that one has NFL experience and one doesn't, but again, when you look at draft capital,
Yeah.
that's an investment there.
Yeah. I agree.
Okay, so let's go to 3rd round pick, Marshawn Lloyd. Jake, what was your first thoughts on this pick?
I was like, wow, they took him over, name any other running back you want, because he went pretty early. He was one of the earlier running backs to go.
I want to say
there was only
third. I want to say he was 3rd.
3rd or 4th, but I mean, there was a couple other running backs that were on the board still. Not off the top of my head, I don't remember, but it was just kind of like, oh, okay. But then you flip the tape back on, right, which is exactly what I did, and I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. He has great burst. He can catch the ball. He's a decent blocker, but he's going to be very good in this offense. Quite frankly, he's got really, really great acceleration. So he's going to be a guy that can be used in the screen game, and maybe Jordan Morgan will be in front of him, and they score some touchdowns.
Brian, what did you think about the Marshawn Lloyd pick?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got to make sure he's explosive. Don't get me wrong; like he's a weapon for sure. I think it's kind of interesting for me. Both of our 3rd round picks, it's like we have that curse of drafting busts in the 3rd round. We drafted 2 guys that have kind of fatal flaws. If they don't get fixed, they're not going to play in the NFL. So for Marshawn Lloyd, we'll talk about Hopper next week. But for Marshawn Lloyd, it's the fumbles. He needs 8 fumbles. And that's in like 300 and something carries or something crazy. Can't remember the exact number, but it was a pretty high fumble rate. So that's a concern. But if they train that, if they put a big emphasis on that, and he buttons it up a little bit, I think he can catch the ball pretty well versus what he got the opportunity to show at USC. And I think he might be a little bit of a bigger and faster, more explosive Aaron Jones type. Like I feel like how many times do we watch Aaron Jones gas out in huge plays? Like if he just doesn't run out of gas, we probably win that game. I can think of one against Tampa. I think one against San Francisco.
San Francisco is the one I thought of right away.
Marshawn Lloyd isn't going to gas out. He runs to the house.
Steve said he's interested to see if there's more gap runs with Lloyd and Jacobs. I mean, Steve said Lloyd was the best in class in gap runs.
I saw that.
I don't think there's a ceiling you can put on Marshawn Lloyd is to say this is what he can do and this is what he can't do. That's how I feel. So I looked it up. He was the 4th running back selected. Jonathan Brooks was the 2nd or the 14th pick of the 2nd round. Trey Benson was the 2nd pick of the 3rd round, and then Blake Corum went 6 picks before Marshawn Lloyd.
Yeah, I like Marshawn Lloyd way more than Blake Corum. Just real quick, back to the Rasheed Walker thing at guard. I did look it up, and Sean Ryan is 1 inch shorter and like 2 pounds lighter. So I mean that wouldn't be unheard of for them to put someone that size at guard. So I think you make a pretty good point there, Tyler.
Nice. Thank you for making me sound better even. All right.
Nice.
Hey,
So,
sorry,
Simon, fresh off the moose, fresh in from the powder.
He's got the moose hair going.
thank you.
Puts a moose in his hair too. Simon, we're on Marshawn Lloyd. What did
Yep.
you think about the pick?
I,
Your thoughts for his role until after. We're going to come back around.
yeah,
line.
I'm
just
following.
the thoughts on the pick first.
Yep. Yeah, I think off the rip, like it wasn't someone I necessarily thought Green Bay would be interested in. But you look at his production, his efficiency, and even going to the Senior Bowl and showing off his pass catching ability a little bit, which isn't something that he necessarily was known for at USC. I think it all signs point to this being a pretty good pick for Green Bay. He has good burst. He has his elusiveness. I think we talked about it a lot when he was drafted.
Yep.
Between us and the guys at Lombardi Time Brews. His elusiveness rating is off the chart. I mean, I think the only downside, and this is something that they mentioned, is he has a little bit of a fumbling issue, but it seemed like Gutekunst didn't really think much of it, or he wasn't concerned over it, I should say. But I think he could come in. Well, I'll wait, but I really like the pick. I thought he's a guy that, like I said, I wasn't really tracking him coming to Green Bay, but I really enjoyed that we got another running back in the room.
I mean, just another thing to throw out there. Like, we talked about a bunch of positions, and a bunch of the positions that we discussed ended up being drafted. I mean, obviously, offensive line is always going to be covered. We're always going to talk offensive linemen. But you look at running backs, safeties, corners, linebackers. I mean, they picked all of those things, and we discussed those all in our positions of need. So a little bit of a
I'm
pat
not
on the
doing
back.
safeties next year.
Yeah, but we're like I said, Brian Gutekunst went into the draft and said
We have like
we're
100
going to
now.
be good at safety this year. I
hope
don't care
so.
if I have to spend 3 picks to get it.
It's funny when you look at when everyone was talking about going into the draft, like, what do we need? What do we need? What do we need? And Gutekunst just filled all those needs.
Yeah,
He's like throwing darts.
Yeah,
Trying to
I did
fill
not
his
big
see
needs.
grouping
three
on the
safeties
safety
coming,
group.
but it seems like they each have their own skill sets.
yeah,
Agreed.
I like that too. Steve said the drop in offensive output when Aaron Jones went out was noticeable. Lloyd has as much juice as anyone in the class. I think you're going to see this reflected when we come back around to talk about the role. But for looking at Marshawn Lloyd, Simon already touched on the elusiveness. He averaged 17.8 yards per reception, 7.1 yards per carry. He had 20 touchdowns in 2 years, forced 47 missed tackles, almost 3.9, almost 4 yards after contact. Was a decent pass blocker. That's something that I wanted to bring up. And then Michael said Lloyd fits our needs perfectly, and I think you're gonna like what we have to say when we all say what we think his role is going to be. But I wanted to throw out there all of the people who said that they believe that Marshawn Lloyd is the best running back in this draft. So first one being Marshawn Lloyd himself.
I mean,
Yeah. Second one being Jim Nagy, the director of the Senior Bowl.
yep.
Third one being Daniel Jeremiah, a very well-regarded NFL.com writer, NFL Network. And fourth being Nick Saban, who was doing analysis during the draft.
Nice.
So Nick Saban, NFL.com, Senior Bowl director, and himself.
I mean, the
Saying
Nick
he's the best running
Saban
back in the
stamp is pretty good. That one stands out a little bit, I'll just say.
That's a pretty solid roster of people who are thinking
Yeah.
you're the best in this class at your position.
Yeah, I like that.
So that said, Jake, what do you think Marshawn Lloyd's role is going to be in 2024?
First of all, Steve, thank you for beating the drum that I was saying before the draft. I wanted a running back where the offense could just run at full cylinder 24 hours a day. Okay, that's all I want. Doesn't matter with the wide receiver, tight end. Doesn't matter. They're going to put the best 5 offensive linemen. Give me 2 running backs to do the same exact thing, and they're both really fast. They run people over. Thank you, Steve. Love you for that. So, Marshawn Lloyd. Now, it's going to sound crazy. I do think that Marshawn Lloyd fits the offense better. But I also don't think that A.J. Dillon's just going to get phased out week 1.
Right.
I do think that he's going to have to compete with him the first couple of weeks. But the explosiveness, the catching ability, and, if in Green Bay was kind of messing with this Aaron Jones the last couple of years where they swing him out to the outside and kind of let him take on a linebacker one-on-one. A.J. Dillon's not doing that very much. Marshawn Lloyd could kill out there. Can you imagine a linebacker trying to cover that in the open field? Yeah, good luck. So I think that Marshawn Lloyd will compete with A.J. Dillon, but I think by like I'm just gonna throw a number out there. I think by week 5, his role will be solidified as the number 2 running back behind Jacobs.
I'm with that. Bryant, what do you think his role is going to be like?
Yeah, I kind of with Jake early on. I don't think AJ Dillon will get phased out right away, and for one of those reasons is because he might. None of them are fantastic at it, but he might be the best pass blocking running back left on the roster. So it would be interesting between him and Jacobs. I know Marshawn Lloyd needs to work on it. So until Lloyd gets some work on that, I think his role is going to be spelling Jacobs on early down. Say we have one of those. We've seen stretches where we run Jacob. Our Aaron Jones, for example, 4 or 5 carries in a row. We're on a first down. He's tapping out or whatever. That's where I think you're going to see more so Lloyd going in versus Dillon. Dillon's going to be coming down in on maybe a second and long and third down passing situations because he's better at. We know Dillon can catch the ball, even though he's not so nimble with it once he gets it or whatever. But he can pass block as well. So I think Lloyd is going to be in that for early and short yardage situations to begin, and then once he improves, or maybe he improves fully on pass protection through the off season, but until he can prove that in games, I think that he'll be in that. But I think it's not by the end of the year he'll have more carries and yards than Dillon would be my thought.
Yeah, I agree. Michael said Dillon might be our H back. Just saying Howard, undrafted free agent, is a dark horse for third running back this year. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with AJ Dillon, but Justin is saying something that I am very much tuned into. He said Lloyd versus linebackers, one cut and he's gone. That's the elusiveness we talked about for sure. Also not afraid of contact, especially at the goal line. That was something that was extremely important to me and why I had Audric Estime higher on my boards for those short yardage situations. So I'm definitely going to get to that. Steve said, what type of shares do you see for each of the big 3 running backs by percentages?
You want me to go first?
Have at it. I was going to leave that open to whoever wanted to jump in on it.
By percentages, I'll give you a percent right now. Whatever Josh Jacobs wants, percentage of the pie, he's getting. They paid him to do that, and that's exactly what's going to happen. Whoever wins between A.J. Dillon and Marshawn Lloyd is going to take the rest. I don't see a lot for a third running back, 5% maybe, not much, but Josh Jacobs is the guy.
I would say
taking Aaron Jones' role.
Yeah, I think Jacobs will crack around 225 carries. You might see Marshawn Lloyd the first year around 125, and then maybe A.J. Dillon around 75, something like that. Also, I do want to say, let's not forget about Wilson. He showed Wilson, right? That's his name?
Yeah,
Emmanuel Wilson.
Yeah, Emmanuel Wilson. He showed some flashes and some bursts of speed. Now, if he comes in and he looks good in preseason, they're definitely not cutting Marshawn Lloyd, and they're definitely not cutting Josh Jacobs. That's where I could see Dillon as an odd man out if one of them shows that they can pass block and stuff as well. That's a possibility. But they could also just roll with the 4 running backs on the roster, like you see sometimes, and then just deactivate one of them. Maybe you deactivate Emmanuel Wilson because he's just your kind of person in waiting, because he's shown that he's a little, he's explosive. He can be a little spark plug. So I think they're in a good situation with this room now.
I think that's an interesting conversation when we get to Michael Pratt. And I know we'll get this eventually. It's like, if you're starting to talk about keeping 3 quarterbacks on the roster, or where are you pulling that extra roster spot from? It might be the running back room.
Might be.
Probably. I think that we'll get to it when we get to Pratt, but I have thoughts on quarterbacks. But as far as going like percentages, if you're looking at percentages, Josh Jacobs had 233 carries in 13 games last year.
Yeah, but we're not the Raiders.
Well, I mean, we're bringing Josh Jacobs to be a 3-down back.
Yeah,
he's gonna play, and I'm gonna say he's gonna be might be like 75% of the snaps.
Yeah, I mean, our quarterback might be a little bit better than what they have there in Oakland, so we might throw the ball a few more times.
Maybe, but even in those passing sets, Jacobs is going to be the one on the field a predominant amount of the time.
Well, I was talking carry split.
Yeah. I think it. I mean,
I was thinking total. Steve said, with John Runyon gone, I'm wondering if the O-line is a better run blocking unit. I'm actually excited for Ryan and Dillard. So that'll definitely be something we talk about over the summer, especially once some of the training camp starts, getting rolling, and we're seeing who's going to be working where. and
Yeah, don't
who's
forget.
working in multiple positions. So that's definitely going to be something we'll be keeping an eye on over the summer.
You're going to see some stuff in the next 3 weeks too, because starting next week we have 3 straight weeks of OTAs and minicamp. So
That's already coming up.
what were you going to say, Simon?
Oh yeah, I was just kind of say that's a good point. Like I like Jesus Christ, sorry, long week. Sean Ryan. I like his run. Sorry, I just lose words sometimes when I start thinking about other stuff. I like Sean Ryan a lot more as a run blocker than what he's shown as a pass blocker. So it'd be interesting, and then kind of vice versa for John Runyon.
That's fair.
So I was trying to see if I could find.
I have dates on OTA offseason stuff if you want that.
So I was looking for Josh Jacobs. I was looking to see his percentage of snap counts. Looking through the first 12 weeks, and then he missed week 13, played week 14. Through the first 12 weeks, he's on the field anywhere from 70 to 84% of the snaps. So I think my 75% is totally within the realm of possibility.
You don't think there's a possibility that could change, especially because Josh Jacobs has a lot of mileage on him. I'm pretty sure he has more carries than Aaron Jones.
I think part of that is the Green Bay Packers will have a better offensive line than Josh Jacobs has ever had.
Right. Yeah. I don't disagree. I mean, going from, Raiders philosophy where they're kind of okay with, running a guy 20, 25 times a game where, going to a Matt LaFleur system where we do see guys like AJ Dillon getting more carries than he probably should. The last couple of years. I think so. That kind of where it goes to what I was thinking is something more like 60-30-10, where you're still going to see that third running back getting some carries. Because even then, when all three of them were healthy, we still saw Patrick Taylor getting snaps for whatever reason.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised by the end of the season if you see Marshawn Lloyd getting 5 to 8 carries a game.
Yeah, and that's something I could definitely see. I think he slides. I don't even, to be honest, I have no idea because I think it kind of depends on what happens with AJ Dillon.
I think because his contract we have as wide receivers,
right? Yeah, I mean,
I don't think Marshawn Lloyd's getting 8 carries a game. I can see 8 touches if you're adding catches. He ain't carrying it 8 times. We got a lot of mouths to feed.
I don't think that's a lot though. I'm not right, and that's kind of what I mean. Is like how much we're going to use.
Run 50 plays. You think he's going to get 8 carries and 50
not
plays?
In those games, not in the games like that, maybe not,
but normal like 70-ish play
65
offenses. Yeah, 65, 70 plays of offense. I think there's a possibility that the running backs get, 24, 25, 26, 27 carries, and he ends up with about 8 of them.
Yeah, don't forget. I know you guys what Josh Jacobs did in Oakland, but we also signed, it's basically a 2-year contract. We also signed him to a 4-year contract. We might not want to bring him in and be like, all right, 22, 24 carries a game, go. You know what I mean? We want to keep him healthy, effective and healthy for 2 years and in the long run too.
Packers averaged 61.5 plays per game last year.
Yeah.
So if we're splitting about 50-50.
So maybe 5, closer to the 5 mark.
What was the split on those plays between run and pass? I mean, it was probably a lot more passing last year.
I know when
probably like 60-40-ish.
Yeah, it was more like 60-40.
Packers are actually 20th in pass attempts per game, 33.5. So 34 runs, 37 or 34 passes, 37 runs.
Okay,
Love was also pretty bad in the first half. Let's call it what it is, right? We're going into a season with a different Jordan Love.
Right.
Over the last 3 games, it was actually 29 pass attempts per game.
Wow. Aaron Jones was on fire, remember?
That's true too.
Well, and the Packers scored a defensive touchdown against Dallas, so
true.
They kind of just started running the ball a lot more anyways.
That's an interesting conversation. I don't think anybody's going to be 100% right, but
no,
that's interesting. Good question, Steve.
I think it'll go. I honestly could see it going either way.
Yeah, I
could
be honest
with you.
I could.
I could see him running Josh Jacobs into the ground and letting Marshawn Lloyd develop a little bit more. Maybe we don't see AJ Dillon because his contract's not something
They're
that's
tied
like,
to.
yeah, they're tied to. They could easily just be like, all right, thanks for your time.
Yeah.
You know?
Here's your 1.2.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, nobody's crying tears over that compared to
Mm-hmm.
327 million.
Do I
For the
respond to
player,
this?
for the football player, not
Yes,
AJ
for
Dillon
the
himself.
person.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, like AJ Dillon's still a great guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Simon, is there anything else you wanted to throw out as a potential role for Marshawn Lloyd?
No, like I said, I think a lot of it just depends on whether AJ Dillon shows out or they see him as someone they can not have on the team next year.
I'm going to go pretty close to what Jake said. My first sentence in the role for Marshawn Lloyd is I think the Packers are planning to use him the underlined exact same way that they use Josh Jacobs. Capable of being a 3-down back that can play the run, the pass, and pass blocking. I think Bryant was saying that he needs some work on his pass blocking. I think he's already a decent pass blocker. Not great, but just as long as he doesn't run into the back of John Runyon Jr. when he's trying to pass block at some point this year, I think we'll be better off in the future. Because that's something that literally happened last year, and it was painful to watch. So I agree with Jake, too, that I think it'll be gradual. But going back to what Justin said, my biggest thing with running backs, and this was affected, it showed in my free agent targets as well, I need somebody in this offense that can be successful in short yardage. Because AJ Dillon was like, he's big, he's going to just bowl everybody over, especially when it's cold. He's going to punish people. Like, if you are big, you need to fall forward. You need to be successful in short yardage situations and at the goal line.
So here's something that I don't, maybe I missed it. I don't think we discussed this. He has an interesting size to him. He's like 5'8" and some change, and he's like a 220. Like he's a bowling ball of a dude.
Yeah, he's
like the same height as Aaron Jones, but 5 pounds heavier.
To be honest with you, he reminds me a lot of Doug Martin.
He ran a 4.4.
Yeah,
sure
I think
Jones
Doug
ran
Martin's
like a 4.51 or something like that. So
Doug Martin was actually pretty good until he started getting banged up a little bit. Yeah. But Marshawn Lloyd's going to get protected because he's going to be behind an all-pro running back. So maybe his career will last a little bit longer.
Doug Martin.
Okay, yeah.
Alrighty. So we can move on to the next offensive pick, which came 2 rounds later in Jacob Monk. Simon, what were your thoughts on the Jacob Monk pick?
Definitely not the Duke player that I think most people thought we were going to get.
Or offensive lineman.
or offensive lineman. But I mean, like I said earlier, this was definitely like bringing in guys to compete at depth at offensive line, or even go and take over that right guard spot. I think he's kind of an interior guy only anyways. Yep. And maybe he's a center. Who knows? But I think he could play either of those 3 guard spots. And so he's an interesting player. But definitely going into the draft, I said we were going to walk away with 3 offensive linemen, and we did.
Oh.
Yeah.
Jake, what were your thoughts on the Jacob Monk pick?
So I didn't know much about him, so I had to go scout him. So I found out 2019 he had 12 starts at right tackle. In 2020 he had 11 starts at right guard. 21 he was honorable mention all ACC, 12 starts at right guard. In 2023 started 13 games, 6 at right guard, 7 at center, and he was a team captain. And I think of all the people, like I said before, Jordan Morgan is getting slotted in at that right guard spot. He is not the person they drafted to compete at that right guard spot. His name is Jacob Monk. I think he's the one that's going to compete for the right guard spot. And I believe that Myers is staying at center. So I think that's what their plan is. They're going to keep Tom out there on the edge. They like him out there. He's a very good player out there. For me, I figured out 2 things. Jacob Monk is really good in the power run game. You want to be good at that? Put a guy that's good at blocking in the power run game. And he was tremendous at blocking down on A-gap defenders and just basically pancaking them, to be completely honest with you. So you want a power run, you want some dives, you want Josh Jacobs to score 17 touchdowns this year, Jacob Monk at right guard. You're going to like him a lot.
Michael said Monk has the weirdest allergy. Yeah, cold water. And then he said
that was
lineman
next. I
equals
forgot about that.
versatility. Steve said 57 starts for Monk. He's a very good developmental interior offensive lineman. Bryant, what do you think of the Jacob Monk pick?
Yeah, I'm kind of like Jake. I had to look into it, and I'm like, man, we might have found our next mid-round gem here, like an offensive line. Like the dude is super athletic. Like Jake mentioned, team captain. So many games and so many snaps. I'm not saying he's the next Zach Tom, like because Zach Tom kicked out the tackle or something, but it kind of reminds you of that type of pick, like where they're just very athletic. And maybe they're playing on a team that, it's not that Duke is a small team by any such imagination, but I would compare them to, where Zach Tom played in Wake Forest. So same
That's
conference. So
that's fair.
Like, I don't know, this could be a very good pick, and he could come in and he could shake up the offensive line too. Like they could turn around and be like, oh crap, we have 2 starters here. Now what the heck are we going to do? Like, not that it's a bad thing to happen, but you're going to hurt some feelings because some people ain't going to play, right? So I'm excited about this pick. I think they probably train him we'll get into his role here in a minute, but I like the pick quite a bit.
Steve said his RAS was excellent, and that's saying a lot because his size is not special. I mean, he was announced as a center, but I think he's likely to be trained to be multiple positions.
One of the best broad jumps in the draft. 9-foot broad jump. I can't remember. I think he was like one of the best broad jumps in the draft, and I know Goody loves that. So
true. Like Jake said, at Duke, he played basically everything. My thing with Jacob Monk, since the pick hasn't been announced and he's coming to Green Bay, every single thing I've heard about him has been positive. Every single person who's talked about him loves him. So he's bringing you mentioned that he's a team captain. That's the type of thing that's coming in. And we talked about this when we were live during the draft. I put up the reaction of Edgerrin Cooper being picked, of Javon Bullard being picked. We talked about Jordan Morgan, how he was starstruck by Jordan Love. Looking at how these guys are coming in with character, that is something that's important. And I think that's really what makes, obviously the locker room great, but it makes guys want to elevate their play for the guy next to him. So by continuing to bring in more players like that, that's just one of the things that I like about players like this. So that said, Simon, what do you view as a role for Jacob Monk?
Coming in, I think he's going to immediately compete for that right guard spot. And who knows down the road, if Myers doesn't produce this year, I think there's a spot for him to compete at center next year as well.
Yep, I agree with that. Jake, what do you think for a role for Jacob Monk?
He's going to be the starting right guard. I think that he's going to be the starting right guard. I think that his ability to run block is going to overtake with Sean Ryan's kind of run blocking and kind of pass blocking. I think they'll take the dominant run blocker and teach him how to pass block.
All right, I like that. Bryant, what do you think for a role for Jacob Monk?
If Jordan Morgan doesn't end up going to right guard because Rasheed Walker comes, crazy improve. There's some players that can improve from last year too, right? So if Jordan Morgan doesn't go in a right guard, I think he takes that job by the end of the year, and at minimum he's the backup center.
Yeah, backup center is what I have him as. I think, and this ties into what I said about Jordan Morgan, believing that he's the starting left tackle. That I think the right guard battle could be between potentially Rasheed Walker and Sean Ryan. I think then you're looking at Jacob Monk then being the backup center just to have the depth chart.
And honestly, if I'm Jacob Monk, backup center on the Packers ain't a bad place to be because it's not like Myers is killing it. And I think that I wouldn't be surprised if they, if Monk shows that I'm almost positive he'll get some time there in preseason. If he shows that he can perform, and Myers is probably gonna have a short leash. Like we can't, he can't play. He's not consistent enough. Like, so unless he comes in and is consistent and is ready to compete his ass off, and I'm pretty sure it's a contract year for him. We could see Jacob Monk being our starting center by midseason, maybe earlier.
So as far as starting center goes, I don't think it's going to happen during 2024. But you talk about Josh Myers having a short leash. I do think with him being already the installed center, I think it's very, very much within the realm of possibility that they use 2024 to get Jacob Monk up to speed with the calling the protections and having him ready to start day one 2025.
So can I respond to Steve real quick here? So let's put Steve's comment up here. Okay. So he said, I'd be surprised if these young guys start early, maybe by December when injuries may open the door. I'm just going to say this. This is my thoughts on this. In terms of, and we're going to use an analogy here, in terms of like age, Sean Ryan isn't that much older with playing experience over a guy like Jacob Monk. He didn't get that much playing experience last year. I mean, he got some. He was splitting snaps. But if you really think about it, we played a lot of young guys last year. Yes, because we had to in some cases. But I don't think it's that crazy to have a guy like Jacob Monk who can just come in and Bryant made the comparison to Zach Tom. I agree. I think that he could play left guard, center, or right guard, and I think he could excel at it, especially in the run game.
So Michael asked a question that I kind of touched on already, saying that he thought Walker was a top 3 left tackle last year. Didn't he grade out very well? What if Morgan goes to right tackle and Tom at center?
Not top.
That's where you're starting to get into really a lot of shifting.
That's I think top 3 is a little much.
Yeah. So
I will say though, I thought he played.
We don't hold PFF's grades in super high regard. But Rasheed Walker graded out well as a pass blocker, not good as a run blocker.
Yeah.
And we just talked about the Packers being a little heavier on run than pass.
Mhm.
But my thing is that Rasheed Walker was a 7th round pick last year.
Yeah.
Jordan Morgan comes in as a 1st round pick. The investment between those 2 picks says that yes, we see that Rasheed Walker was a solid left tackle last year and he was serviceable. We drafted Jordan Morgan in the 1st round to be the guy. That's how I see it.
Yeah, if I told you to guess how many sacks that PFF credited Rasheed Walker with giving up, what would your guess be? Without looking, if you haven't already looked.
Like 3 or 4.
You said 3 or 4?
Yeah.
What would you say, Jake?
6.
Exactly, 6.
Get the hell out of here.
Yeah, so he did a grade at like 66 point whatever, which is above average for PFF, but it's not like he's completely, totally locked up that position. So, but this is a good discussion that we're having, or that we even are in this position to be having this. We were talking about the Bears early on. A lot of them probably wish they were having this discussion with like, oh my God, man, we have too many good players. Who are we going to start versus what they're doing right now is, do we have enough good players to start on the line? Like, so this is a good thing to, position to be in for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Steve asked, when did Zach Tom start? And I think even Elton Jenkins had to wait behind Lane Taylor. Zach Tom started week 1.
Yeah.
Or he didn't start, but he played 30 snaps in week 1 of 2022. And then he was basically a starter from week 7 on.
And Lane Taylor had a lot more snaps in than Sean Ryan did. So that literally plays to my point.
Lane Taylor took a while to develop too. So.
He did.
The other thing I wanted to pull up on Lane Taylor was what round he was drafted.
Is he a 6th round?
4, I think.
I
I think it was a 4th round pick.
Of course, Pro Football Reference doesn't have it.
Mike, can't wait to watch the highlight catch, man.
He was undrafted, Lane Taylor.
Oh,
no
Yep,
kidding.
signed as undrafted in 2013. So, yeah, I mean, it's – what was Elton Jenkins? Was Jenkins a 3rd round pick?
Second
round pick.
yeah.
Okay. And even still, then you're still talking about a 1st round pick. You're still talking about a round higher than that. This is, you were saying this is our quote-unquote number
Elton Jenkins
1.
started week 1, didn't he?
What?
Wasn't Elton Jenkins a week 1 starter?
What? I don't even remember what year he was drafted, to be honest with
3
you.
years ago, for sure.
21, 20.
Oh wait, no, we've already extended him, haven't we?
He wasn't in 20. I know that.
Maybe 19.
Might have been 19.
Holy crap, we're all getting old.
True.
All right. Elton Jenkins.
Either way, this is a good problem to have, right? Like if they start early, that
Definitely a
means
good
they feel if one of these people
Yes,
are starting.
He was drafted in 2019. He played 18 snaps in week 1 and then started the rest of the year.
Yeah,
That's right.
if any of these people are, if any of these young guys, these new draft rookies are starting, it's because this coaching staff and Luke Buckus and everyone else feels that they're ready to roll.
I will say that going back to Jordan Morgan, that if he doesn't start week 1 because he's just not quite there yet, I don't think people should freak out. Because oh yeah, 100%. It's more like a forewarning that, I mean, it's kind of, to me, it's just like Green Bay does this, like they do this a lot, is where they draft a guy in the first round and let him sit for a little bit, and then they come out later and they're good.
Mm-hmm.
And even if we walk into this season starting Rasheed Walker, Elton Jenkins, Josh Myers, Sean Ryan, and Zach Tom, that's not a terrible starting 5 to have.
Wouldn't be mad at it.
I wouldn't be mad at it either.
I feel like the last Jordan we drafted in the first round who didn't start right away turned out pretty good.
I think so.
If we're going on nothing but on the name of
Yeah,
your first
name alone,
round you were drafted,
That's clearly is what tells you how successful they'll be.
so that's how it works.
Okay, so that's where we're at with Jacob Monk. The next one, Travis Glover. He's got good size too. 6'6", 317. Played both tackle positions and a little bit of left guard. So just another guy that they're bringing in for versatility. Steve said the Packers gave up 2 sacks over the past 5 weeks of last season, which is impressive when you consider the teams they played.
Mm-hmm.
Travis Glover, very good pass blocker. He only allowed a 2.8% pressure rate. So, again, it's offensive linemen. We know the Packers are going to draft them. Even if they have a bunch on the roster, next year when we get to 2025 NFL draft prep, we're still going to cover offensive linemen because they're going to draft them.
Yes, they are.
Jake, what do you think about Travis Glover?
I think that he's humongous. I think that he has very long arms, and I think that he's a project guy. But if you're going to have a project guy and you're going to make him enormous, I think that's a good problem to have.
It's a good start. Steve said Glover looks like one of the first guys on the truck.
Yes, he does, dude. I saw a picture of him, and I was like, yo, I would not fuck with that guy.
Looks like the first guy in line for lunch. Brian, what do you think about Travis Glover?
Yeah, he's just coming in to compete. He's like a Caleb Jones, Luke Danuta, one of those type of guys, like just adding another body to the room, see, throwing something at the wall and see if it sticks, right? Just, bring him in, see how it works out. If he ends up, being good enough, you stash him on either the practice squad or maybe on the back end of the roster, and you go from there.
Yep.
Simon, what do you think about Travis Glover?
Yeah, this is kind of like when you get in those later rounds, you start seeing guys that don't necessarily fit what Green Bay usually goes for. This dude's huge. Like, he's a little bigger than some of the offensive tackles they like to draft. He's kind of an average athlete, but he has a ton of experience at Georgia State. And from what I read, he had a pretty good Senior Bowl. He was kind of a late invitee to the Senior Bowl as like an alternate guy. He wasn't invited to the combine, but apparently whatever he may or may not have learned during those few days with the offensive line coach must have stuck a little bit. And so I was reading something crazy, like since like 2018, Green Bay's drafted like 43 guys from the Senior Bowl or something crazy like that. So it just goes to show how much stock they can put into seeing these guys in, the All-Star games and the bowl games and the Shrine Bowls and all that stuff. But I think he's an interesting prospect because I could also see him kind of playing in that guard position a little bit too. And I like the way he finishes his blocks.
Well, Simon touched on a point that I was going to make.
My bad, dude.
No, you're good. You're good. If more people are thinking more things that we can say that are relevant, I think it's a good thing. So, 4 of the 5 offensive picks were Senior Bowl players. So Jordan Morgan, Marshawn Lloyd, Travis Glover, and Michael Pratt, who we're going to get to in a minute, all of them were at the Senior Bowl. Steve said Nagy was with Green Bay way back. Makes me wonder how much he and Goody talk. When I was there, I saw 4 Packers scouts there. I think the Bears and the Commanders were the only teams that I saw that had more representatives there than the Packers did. The Bears had like 9 dudes there.
Jeez.
So that's that. But looking at Travis Glover, my thing with his role is he's more offensive line depth. And as Green Bay Packers fans, we've seen how important that depth is when guys like Bakhtiari, obviously, Elton Jenkins have been banged up. We've seen guys get hurt. You can never have too many offensive linemen who are ready and capable to step up with as little drop off as possible. Spoiler alert, I'm going to come back to this. But in case of injury, that's what I'm looking at, is you want to have as many guys as possible capable and ready to stand in. So, Jake, what are you looking at for a role for Travis Glover?
Just a developmental guy. He's made starts at right tackle, left guard during his career. So you wanted to talk about people being too big. I mean, 6'6", and I have him written down as 324. I mean, 6'6", 324 as a guard is pretty big. I got that from the Georgia State website. But, you know, he was a 2023 first-team All-Sun Belt starter at left tackle for 12 games. So, I mean, he's just a big guy. He's going to be a developmental guy. I agree with Bryant. I hide him in the back of the roster, and I just see what I got with him.
Michael threw out another thing, too. He's another team captain. Justin said 9 guys from the Bears is equal to 4 regular representatives. They need 100 buddies.
Well played.
Bryant, what do you think for a role for Jacob Monk?
To make the roster so Ryan Newman does not.
I think you need Royce Newman. Ryan Newman's a NASCAR driver.
Royce Newman,
whatever. See, he's so bad I don't even remember his name, and he started for us 3 years ago.
Steve said he's a guy to develop like we did with Yash. That's totally fair. Michael said, without injury, I see us trading a couple of these guys at the end of training camp. A lot of O-line competition. Let the cream rise to the top. I mean, they're going to hold on to probably, 9 offensive linemen?
Probably 8.
I think they had 9 or 10 last year.
Actually, I can see 9. Off the top of my head. 9.
And the versatility does make it so, like, we're having these conversations. We're about to get into a quarterback. Steve said 9. If you have guys that are versatile enough that you might be able to trim an extra offensive lineman off of the 53,
That's right.
if you want to carry an extra one of something else.
Like a running back.
Like a running back. Simon, what do you think for a role for Travis Glover?
Yeah, developmental offensive lineman. He might make the back end of the offensive line group when they whittle down to 53. But I could easily see him being one of the healthy scratches for the game.
Yeah, kind of like a Caleb Jones type.
Yeah.
All right, Simon, I'll go to you again. Michael Pratt, what did you think of the pick?
Yeah, I mean, everything leading up to the draft was we're going to start taking quarterbacks late, see if we can develop a few of these guys and maybe ship them off for draft picks later on. And, I really thought Michael Pratt would go a lot earlier in the draft. And not that I was really paying attention to it because, we're kind of focused. I was focused elsewhere, but see him go in the 7th was kind of a surprise to me. But I mean, he's played a lot of quarterback. I guess he didn't start playing QB until high school either, or football until high school either. But I think he has a lot of toughness and aggressiveness in his game. And it's kind of cool to see like a small school QB that's been at the same school, especially with NIL and all this stuff, stick it out with the guys and kind of turn around the program in a way. I mean, he went head-to-head with USC and ended up coming back from a 2-3 score deficit. But, I mean, as far as his game goes, I don't think he has the greatest arm talent in the world. But he's a smart QB and he makes good choices and he has good touch on his ball.
So I pulled stats for him. He had a 65.4% completion percentage, 2,405 yards, 22 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. Now, in 2022, he had 27 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. He had a 110 passer rating last season. He did have 5 touchdowns, and he did have 6 fumbles while rushing. So that's really only one of the few things that I would say as a potential like negative. But the fact that Tulane has been a team that's been ranked in the top 25 in college football the last couple of years it's legit. It's not something to shake a fist at.
Yeah.
Michael said Pratt was rated as a 4th-round pick. Couldn't believe he was there in the 7th. Great developmental pick. And that just goes to show that anybody who's talking about the draft doesn't know what they're talking about when you're trying to project where they're going to go.
Especially in day 3 picks.
Justin said that Pratt was a steal. And we've said this. I'm going to keep saying this. I'm going to keep reiterating it until everybody who interacts with our content understands that we are not in the draft prep for getting the picks right. We are in it to learn the players.
Yep.
To learn the league. So we study all these players not to try to figure out exactly where they're going to go in the draft. We're doing it so that we know what we are getting when we get our guys, and we also know like what the Lions got in Terrion Arnold, or what other teams are getting in the picks that they're making, so that we know the NFL as a whole better because we've put in the time to study these players.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, looking at Michael Pratt, I'm looking at him to compete with Sean Clifford for the backup or being the 3rd-string quarterback. And I think we're going to look at the Packers probably having 2 quarterbacks on the roster, being Jordan Love and Sean Clifford, with Michael Pratt being that emergency guy.
Yep.
That's where I view Michael Pratt. However, I think the Packers are taking the backup quarterback position to Jordan Love very seriously. Because like I just said with Travis Glover, you want as little drop-off as possible when you have important positions. Quarterback is one of them. So if an injury happens, if they can develop multiple backups, then they could, like Simon said, trade one and possibly improve on their investment. With Michael Pratt being a 7th-round pick, if he's lighting it up in preseason and we're watching him in the second half of preseason games and he's lighting it up, and in 2025 we can turn him into a 4th-round pick, and you see, Goody tuned a 7th into a 4th with 1 year of investment into him, that's genius by Brian Gutekunst to do something like that. So that's where I'm at with Michael Pratt. Jake, what are you viewing his role?
Michael Pratt, dog. But on a serious note, he's a pretty good athlete, man. And I wrote down his career stats: 9,611 total yards and 90 touchdowns compared to 26 interceptions. That's like 3.5 touchdowns to every interception. So that's pretty dang good if you ask me. I'm glad that you made the point about them being ranked, because I was thinking the same thing. I was like, when is the last time Tulane was ranked consecutively? Not ranked overall, but consecutively.
When their logo was designed.
But he was pretty good. I also wanted to make a joke about the Bears, that are the 245th pick in the draft beat the 1st overall pick, and that is just how it goes. Packers quarterbacks are better than Bears quarterbacks, so suck it.
Justin said he had fumbles, but he could have had a better O-line as well, and that's true. There's always context involved, and I believe that PFF tracks fumbles as rushing stats, even if they are like a quarterback, like a strip sack.
Yep.
So it's not just all of his fumbles came while he was running the ball. Justin said, I like Clifford a lot, not saying he can replace Love. Don't worry, there was plenty of people that said that last season, but he can definitely fill in and compete at a high level and win games. The fact that Aiden O'Connell was drafted before Sean Clifford still surprises me. And yeah, we're going to see Jordan Love get paid. We're not expecting Sean Clifford or Michael Pratt to step in and be Jordan Love.
Don't worry.
But just not wanting
Kurt Bankert's coming back.
This is where Jordan Love is, and then being like, this is where Sean Clifford is, and then Michael Pratt is somewhere down here. Like, you want to at least get these guys a little bit closer so the drop-off isn't as dramatic if your number one guy gets hurt. And having Tom Clements still in the room, I think, is a benefit to all 3 of these guys.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Build that man a statue.
I was going to say, that man might be
I'm in. I'm in.
Developing QBs, bro.
I am in on a Tom Clements statue.
Yeah.
Maybe if we go to the draft next year, we should make a sign that says "Build a Tom Clements statue in Green Bay."
We'll get
on
for sure.
Not if we go to the draft. When we go to the draft?
Well, I'm still on the iffy train.
No, I'm kidnapping you.
So you get on the moose right now,
dude. The 3 of us going to Alaska to kidnap Simon to bring him to the draft would be epic.
It's also illegal, but
I'm also
You
going to
can't
watch
be
it.
AWOL if you're
Ooh,
against your
National
will.
Lions. Nobody cares.
They'll change it to against will on leave.
Yeah.
So for Michael Pratt, for me, I mean, he's a 22-year-old dude that started 46 games. I mean, that's pretty impressive. I just looked it up real quick. In his entire tenure there, like you guys talk about rank, he played with like 6 or 7 other players that got drafted. Probably the most notable being on offense anyway, being Darnell Mooney, who is pretty much out of Chicago now, and Tyjae Spears, who will have a chance to start at running back or play well at running back for Tennessee this year. But for me, for him, he improved each year in his completion percentage. Last year, he took a dip in yards, but they threw the ball a lot less than the year prior. So like that's kind of what you're looking for, right? It's just someone that does a decent job protecting the ball. Yeah, you can see he doesn't have the best arm strength. That might hurt him in Green Bay in the wintertime. We'll see. But we don't plan. We hope not to see Michael Pratt on the field unless it's because we traded him somewhere else
or in August.
Yeah, or in August, exactly. But so he'll compete with Clifford. I think Clifford's probably going to beat him out. Clifford, we didn't see the practices towards the end of last year, but from what Matt LaFleur is saying, Clifford started to play pretty well. Showed some stuff. So it'll be tough for him to beat him out. But they're both of them are pretty athletic as well. So, good competition. I think they all three stay, obviously Love will be there, but I think Clifford and Pratt will be on this team this entire year too. I don't foresee either of them unless they both go out and like ball out in preseason and then you see an injury start somewhere and someone like panics, like throws a 3rd round pick at us for Clifford or something. Like I don't see either of them leaving. I will say I love it because you're exactly right. Like, if, say, Jordan gets a high ankle sprain or something, he misses 2 to 3 games, that could be the difference of us making or missing the playoffs if we don't have a chance to even compete in those games. You know what I mean? So even if Jordan kills it the other 14 games we played, but because and we finish, 10-6 or 9-8, and we don't squeak into the playoffs because of that injury, then that season's for naught. So I think it's really these other teams that there's so many teams in the NFL. It's like, oh, their quarterback went down, they're absolutely done. So I like the fact that we're continuing to add that room to try to avoid that situation.
Yeah, just having guys to keep the boat afloat. Chris said that Chris Pratt is probably the cooler Pratt. Give Michael some time. Okay, so I want to throw this out there just because this tweet just came through from Marcus Eversole. The full schedule is coming tomorrow, but Steve said, is Clifford's gunslinger mentality a good trait as Love's primary backup, or is it better to have a protector of the ball? I don't think it matters, to be honest with you. I mean, if you're having a guy who's going to need to give you, good quarterback play, I think it's going to be on Matt LaFleur.
They can rein that in a little bit too. We have a guy named Josh Jacobs now, and
exactly.
Marshawn
So yeah, I mean, if you're not looking to be like, all right, Sean, like, we're up by 11 points and we just need to salt this game away. He's not going to be like, no, I'm throwing it 50 yards down the field to Jaden Reed. Like, yeah. So Marcus Eversole has tweeted that there are a few dates on the Packers schedule per a source that after they play the Friday night game in Brazil, they will have a Sunday home game versus the Colts on September.
I saw that.
Noon game or
what's up?
Do we know if it's a noon game or?
It doesn't say times. Just just the games.
That's good.
Also at the Jaguars on October 27th versus the Texans on November 3rd and versus the 49ers on 11/24, November 24th.
It's my birthday.
Oh, look at this guy.
What a loser having a November birthday.
Hey.
What a
Here's
dweeb.
2 days prior to mine.
The day after that. Watch it.
Hey, mine's the
Simon's
22nd.
Simon's is the 22nd.
Oh, man, what a week. What a week, dude.
Get on board, Tyler. You're fired.
My dad's
Oh, watch me hit the Tony Reale button on all three of you. Jake can put himself back in, but you two can't. This is November 17th.
My brother Chris
he's
is on the
definitely getting the
17th.
ban hammer. That dude's a Vikings fan anyways.
Your brother's is on
All
the
right.
17th?
Yeah.
My brother's is on the 19th.
My dad's is on the 8th, so
It's wild. A lot of February.
I was gonna say there's
Love
nothing
making.
to do in February.
Do you guys have any undrafted free agents you were really intrigued by?
Jake threw him out at the beginning.
Oh, I'm
Steve
sorry, I
said
missed
Valentine's
that.
Day.
Apologies.
Yeah.
Really?
So when are we going to talk about Peter Bowden?
Yeah, that was the
Jake
guy.
did at the top of the show.
Yep.
I was
really
going to
the guy.
dedicate a whole show to him. What do you mean?
Feel free to record a video as long as you like about Peter Bowden. I'll even
I'm
send you the interview.
I'm
I
going
did
to
if
take
you wanna
30
post it.
snippets of long snapping. We're just going to roll through it.
Long
He like
snapping
he
highlights.
slow frames it. Look at how many spins this.
Look at the yellow rotations, right?
It spins like a 4-seam fastball coming out of his hands. Michael said his wife's is the 5th. Man, there was really just not a lot to do in February.
Well,
I
you know what
mean,
happens in
we-
February.
Yeah.
Everybody snowed in.
Yeah, that's it. That's what I was aiming for.
That's why we didn't freak
All
out
right.
during
That's
quarantine.
one way to phrase it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Anyways,
Oh,
so
Call that
So
building an
tonight-
igloo.
tonight, when we get tomorrow, Jake and I will be live again discussing the Brewers. Next Tuesday, we're going to have the defensive draft picks. So next week we'll have defense. And then obviously Jake and I will be live next Wednesday again. And then 2 weeks from today is going to be our next Patreon watch party. That's going to be a Brewers Cubs game. So subscribe to us on Patreon. Come join us for a pregame show, a watch party, and a postgame show. Tons of information going to be flying in those pregame shows. My last pregame show's notes were 3 pages long, just on the pregame show. So we can zoom way in on these pregame shows for these watch parties. So the more people we get to subscribe to it, the more we can do them, and the more information we can give out. So all of that, Bryant, Simon, I will see you guys next Tuesday, and Jake, I will see you tomorrow.
see you tomorrow, buddy.
Go Brewers. Brewers 1-2.